So welcome back. I think this is book nine, right, Chris?
Yeah, this is book 9 of the Year of Magical Learning Project. Well, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about a book called the Kybalion. As you can see the cover here, the Kybalion is about it's a I'm just going to actually read the description of this because it's kind of hard to explain it. It was a book originally published in 1908 by these something called the Three Initiates that purports uh, the Hermetic teachings, basically. So it's a book about the 7 Hermetic principles upon which the entire Hermetic philosophy is based, basically. So the Kybalion is a little bit of a spiritual book that talks about, just some of the philosophies of life that guides specifically this philosophy of the Hermetic teachings, which I think was ancient Greece. Yeah, it was ancient Egypt and ancient Greece.
Mhm.
So 2 of the 7 principles of the Kybalion. It was a really good book, by the way. I mean, I don't have you either one of you read this one?
I have not, but I've heard you talked about it
Yeah.
before, and it sounds very interesting to me.
Yeah, I thought I was going down a weird path with this one when I first downloaded it and was doing it. I was like, it's like where am I going with this one? But I ended up enjoying it. I'm glad that I stuck around and saw it through. But 2 of the 7 principles of the book, in particular, one talks about life has polarity. So meaning there's always opposite ends of a pole. Like if you have hot and cold, then you have the whole entire spectrum in between. And then it talks about life has rhythm, so you have swings back and forth along that pole. It's just natural, natural swings and natural rhythms of life and how things work. One of the things that stuck out to me the most was, this past year, past couple of years, I've been on a personal quest for finding balance in my life, and trying to maintain that balance in my life. And that's a lot of the principles that we built around with Clubany, of trying to help other people find their own balance, and then building a tribe of people around that. So balance is an important part of my life, and this book really spoke to me a lot. It made me think a lot about my daughter again. The wild swings that we had on our journey with her, where one day we're expecting our first child and everything's going along great, and all of a sudden the next day we're in the ICU welcoming a 22-week-old 1 pound 1 ounce baby fighting for life every single day, and that wild swing of to the opposite end of the poles of my life, in terms of like the emotional swing of that. It was a lot to process, and it was a lot to take in, and it was a lot for me to handle. After we lost her, and coming to grips with that, living at that end of the extreme of the polarity of my own life. The natural thing that ended up happening was this huge swing back, where all of a sudden, when you and I first met, like 5 or 6 months after this whole event in my life, everything had changed dramatically. I was on just a whole nother trajectory of my life. The stuff that I was doing, the stuff that I was caring about, stuff that I was thinking about, stuff that I was reading, stuff that I was learning, how we started this, it was the swing back is what you saw, I guess, of that. But this book talks a lot about, like, if you if you want, like, just life has polarity and life has rhythm. The further you swing one way on that pole, the natural life is going to swing you further, just as far back, toward the positive end. So anytime you're going through something bad, or good, you're naturally just going to fly back and forth. Well, for me, I want to try to do my best to control that rhythm of life, and I want to do my best to try to find that balance and harmony. And it made me start to think a lot about, like, humans throughout history, of why we meditate, why we reflect, why we're spiritual, why we have God. It's really to control those swings back and forth, and that rhythm of life, because we're always going to be shoved back and forth. We can't control that, like we can't control what happens to us. We can't control losing a child, or losing a family member, or losing a job, or whatever it may be. Like, sometimes you just can't control these things. But when you can figure out how to find your balance and find your center, and find ways to keep yourself on in the polarity area that you want to be in, those are powerful skills to have and acquire. And that's really what the quest that I've been on for the past year or so. Anyway, love to get your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think about that? Of the concept of life having rhythm and life having polarity to it.
So as you are talking, I'm imagining you are on a train track and you're trying to prevent yourself from getting derailed, getting off of the track,
Yeah,
because you have to pull to the opposite side because sometimes um, life throws you a hard ball and it knocks you off of your track,
yeah,
and you have to find ways to get back on track so that you don't get off of that train track. So that's what I'm imagining while you were talking. But I kind of agree in terms of um we can't really sustain the extremities. We just can't do it. If
no,
you stay in one extremity too long, I think you go crazy.
yeah, it'll
For
kill you. I
exact,
mean,
yeah,
I think it'll literally kill you if you
yeah,
somehow get stuck in a polar state. Like, I mean, it'll tear, good or bad. Like, I mean, like, look at people that win the
exactly,
lottery or something like that. Like that's perceived to be good, but they get stuck in this
exactly.
good
You
state,
you
and
could
the
die,
swing
you could
back is
die
just as
from
bad.
stress, and you could
Right,
die from boredom.
right,
And so I think it's the variety of life that makes it interesting. And I think having a control is having an optimal balance and optimal, I guess, portions
right.
of a little bit of each. And I think having that gives you the most satisfaction out of life. Um, so I think having balance, to me, it's almost like the one of the most center principle that you can have. If you can have that, then I think you're much closer to happiness than anything else, right?
Agreed.
Because you
Like,
have a little bit of each. You have one of each. Basically, you have your cake and eat it too. That's what I think.
yeah, so I'm curious, like, what are your guys' thoughts on how do you guys try to maintain balance? Like, what are, like, I wrote in here my the way that I control the rhythm. I try to control the rhythm of my life, the swings back and forth of it through my core values today, I guess, is really what I use to try to anchor myself into a certain, balanced area of life, I guess. I'm just curious to hear what you guys do, or how you guys think through that as well. Or any kind of wild swings you've had in your own life. I mean, Blake, I don't know if there's any, if this feels like, rings any bells to your own life of, like, when you feel like you're just being swung back and forth by life, I guess, and you see the extreme highs and lows and just the natural swings of it. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think what you said about having the core values, I think that helps stabilize you in the positive. I also think it's easy to get stuck when you're in that negative, life's not going well, to get stuck in that area and get yourself out of it sometimes and not recognize maybe why you're in that area. I also think when you're in the good, I think a lot of times we take for granted when things are good and we don't remember the bad. And I think sometimes, we need to, I guess, reflect on that in some of the, tough times to really appreciate, how good we have it, because we're never really content. Or a lot of people aren't very content. So, that's kind of what came to my mind. When you were talking about this is, um, you gotta, if life was, everything was perfect and bad things didn't happen, everything was good, it wouldn't be good. There is no good without having experiencing the bad too. So I think it's having the core values, recognizing why that swing goes in the negative sometimes, making the right corrections. And I think like what you said about your values is really what's going to anchor you and give you stability in the, swing in the right direction. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, I mean, none of us can control the swings of life at all. Like, I mean, like,
Yeah, but the thing is,
yeah,
that's life though, because if
yeah,
you can't experience happiness if you don't know what sadness is,
And
right?
there's always lessons to be learned in those sad moments. It's hard in the moment to realize that in those tough times, but I think you should always realize you're going to get through it, and there's going to be good that comes. You're going to learn something that's it's gonna help you in the good in the future.
yeah. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this lately. Just over the course of the past couple of years of this topic in particular, of how much I despise the extremes of life at this point in time. I don't want to ever live in that world. However, I'm fascinated by people that live in that world because of the lessons that they learn. I think of books that I've read, like Extreme Ownership, of like Navy SEALs, out in the trying to, it's life and death when they're trying to coordinate and, do team operations, or Felicia just made me watch that Netflix documentary about the Cheer. It's called Cheer. I don't know if you guys have seen that or whatever, but
I've seen the title. I didn't watch it yet.
It's crazy. Like I mean, these people are like just killing their bodies, for a trophy. And the extreme nature of what they're trying to do and trying to achieve this reward, which I don't really agree with the reward, but at the same time, like the amount of teamwork and the bonding that they create in that extreme environment is something to behold. And there's a lot of lessons that can be learned of how they went about that. But I don't want to live in that extremity. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the world that I want to be in. But there's so
But
many
I don't
lessons
think they
that
can
be learned.
either. I mean, they
They
probably
can't.
do it for 3 years, 4 years. I mean, sometimes 6, 7 years. But after that,
Right.
they have to retire, be a coach
Yeah.
if they want to stay in it. But most people can't.
Exactly.
Most football players can't play that long. So I don't think anyone can survive in the extremities. Because I said before, you either gonna go crazy or your body's gonna give out.
For sure. I mean,
So
they're broken. These kids are all broken. Like, all these cheerleaders are just like wounded soldiers all day long walking around. And I mean, it's really sad to watch, honestly, but at the same time, it's fascinating to see like what can, there are lessons that can be learned from that, where
I mean,
you can take
everybody
that
has
and
the
apply it to
same,
your life.
almost the same amount of I guess, energy. If you put it all into one burst, then it's going to have a short. It's going to be like a big, fireworks, and it's
Right.
big boom. But that's that's just one short burst. Or you can do the endurance path where you can expense a little at a time, and you can
Right.
ride the long tail versus the short boom. So I think you pick and choose, because at the end of the day, if you use it to extremity, you can't do it again.
For sure. It's the tortoise
You
and
guys-
the hare. Yeah. Go ahead, Blake.
You guys are talking about too, it seems like kind of physically, I think more mentally, like, let's say you're in love with some girl and then it doesn't work out, and how that can let you, get in the depression.
Yeah.
And, it's how hard it is to control that. And, eventually when you find your wife, you realize, oh, that was a good thing. I spent so much time being sad when I'd only, come to find out actually that wasn't the right person for me. And that's hard to do. I'm sure there's a lot of, mental, anxiety. And, let's say if a kid applies to a school and doesn't get in and thinks, oh, it's the end of the world, that, I guess, controlling it too. It's hard in those moments, mentally, when something isn't good, to say, all right, this is going to be okay, not let it wreck you and make you feel terrible. So I think too a lot about the mental swings.
But at the same time, it's almost like mental training, because once you achieve whatever that, you find your wife, right? You know that that's valuable because you've gone through some of other experiences, and you know why you want that. Because without the swings, you can't understand what it is to have the others. You can't have a hot sun versus a cold winter without knowing one extreme to another, and then where you want to set.
You could almost argue that you find your values in the extremes, honestly. I mean, like that's maybe where you like go and it's like a Zelda quest, right? Where they like hold up one of the pieces of the Triforce or something, when you go through something like super extreme in your life, and you're like, oh, I got a value out of this at least. And then you could use that to control later on the swings of your life, I guess. But
yes.
but to Drew's point, like I don't expect any teenager to hear this, or young child or young adult that's going through the stuff that Blake's talking about to go, yeah, I get it. No, you just live the extremes and then you take the lessons back from them. But at the end of the day, like as we're progressing and we're learning and we're on this journey and stuff like that, then you can start to think.
So how do you find the middle of something if you don't know the ends?
You don't. Like, I mean, that's what I said. I find a lot of value in the extremes.
Exactly. So you don't know where to set your balance,
right?
Unless you know the extremes.
I don't want to live in the extreme anymore. And when I was younger, I kind of did.
You go there and you quickly retreat, but at least you go there.
Maybe it's a young person thing where you can live in the extremes just because your body can take it. I don't know. And your mind can take it. I don't know.
So let me ask you, as a parent, do you think it is something when a child is going through those extremes that you are going to say, this is a part of experiencing it? Or are you going to try to say, look, man, you got to get yourself in the middle here?
Yes.
I
know
think,
either.
yeah, I mean, it's a good question. True. You have 4 of them, so you go.
So I say, as a parent, your job is to be a teacher. Your job is to say, I have some experience. You ask me what I would have done. I can't give you answer, but I can give you what I've seen, and to get you away from the extremities as fast as possible. I can't hold your hands and prevent you from touching a hot stove. But once you touch a hot stove, you need to pull your hand back right away. So I'm not gonna block the hot stove, for example. They can touch it, but I'm there. I'm gonna watch them. Okay, you touch it. Now what happened? Okay, let me guide you through some steps. What's gonna happen to your fingers? We're gonna should you put it on ice? How do you soothe it? Put some oil, some aloe, whatever. So I'm there as a knowledge repository, but I can't do things for them. The only thing I tell them to do is, if you want to see the extreme, you see the extreme, but I'm there to pull you back when you need to. So that, yes, you're going to hit the extreme, but I'm also there if you want to reach out and pull back so that you are not going to derail from that train track that you're on.
Yeah, I echo that as well. Ironically, I think of what we're doing right now, and I think of me writing these reflections every day for, and reading the stuff that I'm reading, and I'm leaving crumbs for my own children, someday too. They can hear their dad talk about the same conversation, and like it'll mean something to them maybe, or something like that. They can read this story and it'll mean something to them, or they can read the reflection and maybe it'll mean something to them. Like they won't want to read this stuff until they probably experience something. But at the same time, like to True's point, I can't stop you from living in the extreme. Your parents can't, stop you from doing what you do, and I don't think that's their job. I think their job is to set a good role model, be a good example, live, take the lessons that we've already learned in life and show them, like, okay, you burned your hand on the stove. Like this is, like maybe watch this video that I made with my buddies on, one day about what it's like to do these other things. So this is why I think it's important for these kind of activities to do stuff that reflects your values, so you can leave a legacy for other people to build their base off. So maybe they don't have to go through the same shit you went through.
Yeah. There should be a parachute for your kids. Don't stop them from jumping out of an airplane and do skydiving. Just be a parachute.
Good way to look at it.
Yeah. Well, that's good stuff, guys. Any other final thoughts before we pose our question and say goodbye for the day?
I think that would be due.
Awesome. So thanks for joining us again on the Year of Magical Learning. The question that we're going to leave you with is, what methods do you use to leverage to find your own balance in your own life? Like we mentioned, core values is important for this group. I'm sure there's other methodologies and ways that people do that. Love to hear about it. If you guys have any thoughts, leave some comments, or just take some time and journal yourself and reflect. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.